Hello everybody. Our project today is a live edge serving tray. It's Christmas time here, so I'm doing this for a dear friend of mine. I'm going over his house and I'm going to bring him some goodies, but I thought I'd build a tray to put some of the stuff in. So we live in Vancouver Island in Canada, so I'm decided to use some live edge, and this is off of a Western Maple. And it'll be this will be the edge to be going around the outside. So I found some boards here and I'm just cleaning up the edge to make sure there's no rot or anything in it and trying to get some nice texture. So what we'll be doing is sawing these in half and resawing them. I want about 3/8 to 5/16 thick. So I'm just cleaning them up there with a scraper and then we'll cut them to size. In the bottom, I resawed and book matched a bottom yellow cedar, cypress, and I put that together, and that'll be the bottom of the tray. So this Western maple is actually a nice product. Sometimes you'll really get a nice edge to it, and it has beautiful colors as it ages. So we'll just get this all cleaned up and then we'll take it over the bandsaw and cut it in half and take a look at it. I'm cutting more material than I need, and I always do that when I set up the resaw because I use an awful lot of material that's book matched, and sometimes when you cut these boards open you get a really nice figure in the boards that you want to keep for a later project, which I did in this project. You'll see when we get them cut open. So here we are at the big bandsaw, and I'm just cutting this in half. And once we get it cut in half, then we'll determine which boards we're going to use. I believe this is the board that we use because it has. I'm trying to get quite a bit of color variation on the side because it'll only be about 2 inches high. The rail around the serving board, so I'm trying to get as much variance in the grain and color as I can. And I'm just taking my time to make sure that I can minimize the amount of planing and sanding on the boards. You can see here, so we've got that board cut and we'll get it apart. And there's a piece of book match. You see what we're talking about when you get them together, and if that had some wild grain, or I would joint that up. This one here I did save. I didn't cut this one up because I will save this for a later project because it has quite a bit of grain in it and it looks nice. So that'll be a panel for further project down the road. Here's all our boards that we've cut in half. And you see, if you take your time whenever you're using the bandsaw cutting your board, it's important to get both boards as close as possible. And if you notice how flat these are, they're completely cut right in the center. And there's the top board that we're going to save. We're going to save that one there for a future project. So follow along and we should be able to show you some more projects. But this Western maple is actually quite nice. This tree it's called Spalted. It has a bit of a fungus in it, which gives you all those different colors and hues in it. So this is Spalted Maple, and what I have to do now is find from the low point, and I'll measure down 1 5/8, and then I'll make a mark, and I'll take that over the bandsaw. And I took it over the bandsaw, cut it off, because I want the natural grain on top of the board, so the natural edge will be on top. And you have to use two of the boards that you cut in half, because you cut one board has to be long enough to give you 2 pieces, and then the other one. So whenever you join them together, you'll have this continuous edge grain all the way around. You can see there's my base. I already have it all glued up, and that's Cypress. or yellow cedar if you wish. And that's 5/16 thick, and that's been book matched as well. So the perimeter or the edge of the serving tray, I want to use a box joint on the edges. I don't plan on using any screws or any glues on this board. It's all just going to be 100% joinery. So no nails and no screws, just glue joints and a dadoed and recessed bottom. So here I am just running through. So whenever you're using hardwood or actually any kind of wood and you're using a box joint, it's always good to score the edge of your wood so you don't have a tear out. So here I'm just marking it out, and I'll just take a couple of knife runs here, nice sharp knife, and so whenever it's being pushed through the dado blades, it's not going to chip out the back. And you go end for end, so you flip it end for end, so these score marks will be on opposite sides of each other. So whenever you're turning it on your jig, I've got a really good video on showing you how to make box end joints, and they're great for everything. I really use them a lot. I'll be putting together a series of a lot of projects. We've done a couple of boxes now, and we'll do the serving tray, and I've got a couple more projects coming up where I plan on using the jig. It's very versatile, very strong. We're building a carpenter's toolbox. We'll be using the box jig, or the finger jig, some people call it. You see here I've marked them all, and now I'll just score them all, and then I'll flip them from end to end, because that's how you have to put in the jig. And on these small pieces, it's important to use a small square and clamp it. You don't want it to move around on you. So I put all the pieces together the way that I want them to lay out. What I'm doing is just putting some pencil marks along the inside here. And I have a 1/4 inch spiral bit in the router table there. I'm just using the small router table. And what I've done is put some marks on the inside. And I'm up 1/4 inch from the bottom. And this is where I'll inlay the bottom of the tray in. But I made some marks, and you can see some marks on the fence there, because the two end pieces have got to be a stop and go dado. I don't want it to come all the way through the piece. So I'll be easing that onto the bit and then pulling it across and then lifting it back up again. And that'll stop it from going all the way through. The side pieces, I can go all the way through because they'll be dropped back that 5/16. You see I'm just going to my mark. I made a couple of marks, and I'll drop that along and go all the way through, and then lift it up, and then I'll go through again. I always like to, whenever I'm routering anything, to give it 2 runs to make sure that it's nice and clean. And if there's a bow in the wood or anything, and you can see the stop cut there. So this is just my second time I'm going through here, and I'll just not using a big holder because I want you to see it. Didn't want to get it in the way of the camera. And we'll just stop at that mark and pick it up, and that should give us a nice groove. And that's going to be the inset for the tray, like I said. So I'll get all these done. And the reason I put a pencil mark all the way around, so when I dismantle it all and went to put it on the router table, I'm able to determine where the route is going to need to be. It's easy to get mixed up whenever you're got all the pieces on the table. So sorry about my arms and everything being in the way. And those are my stop dados. And then I'll take them to the bench and I'll clean them up with a 1/4 inch chisel. And these are the ones that can go all the way through. These are side ones. And the reason they can go all the way through, you can notice that I cut the boards so that the fingers on the bottom are the inside fingers. So they don't protrude to the outside. So here I am just taking a 1/4 inch chisel and I'll just clean up the ends. And I'll go just a little bit beyond the joint and I'll just clean that up all the way down. So I'll do that on all the boards, so that way, and then I'll do a test piece. I can put them all together and I can measure my size. And I've only want to go in, because these are narrow, I'm only in probably about 3/16 of an inch. You can notice that the channel is quite narrow, and that's because the boards aren't very wide. So it's important that I get an exact fit. So what I've done is I cut a story stick, which is basically just a thin stick, and I've kept on measuring it and cutting it, and then I can fit it in between, and that's how I measured the panel, so I could get the panel exact. So started with a tape measure and measured the ends, and then cut a little story stick. Now I'm just putting it all together, gluing it, and I just have it laid on a couple of pipe clamps on the side, and I'll get this all glued, and I'll be gluing both sides of the fingers, putting them together, and then I'll put a top clamp on, and then I'll let this glue for about 3 hours. So it's about midday now, so I'll come back out later on, and then I can take the clamps off it and then continue to do some sanding. What I'll have to do is on the corner joints, because we're cutting back, I'll use a rasp and make them all uniform and soften up all the edges. And I like to use Type-On 3 on this, which I've said on other projects, but there's a couple of reasons. Well, the reason we're using Type-On 3 is this is a serving tray, and if they spill water in it or anything, I don't have to worry about the glue coming apart, because it's a waterproof glue. And I'm not gluing the panels. Whenever you're doing something this kind, you want that panel to float a little bit. It's not as worrisome on the width as it is the length. There we have it all together, and I'll just put some tension on it. Doesn't need an awful lot, and I'll put some clamps on the top of it to pull the ends in, and that'll give you a nice tight joint. And you can see that I've sanded the bottom panel now, and you can see it, and that was book matched as well. You can see both of the panels went together very nicely. And I'm just checking to make sure it's nice and square. The thing that's really nice about these box joints is that they go together so tightly, and you seldom have a problem with them being a square. So I've just put in some rail clamps there to pull the ends in. And this is after 2 or 3 hours, and I can take the clamps out, and it's nice and dry. Now I'll just give it a sand. You can see the grain on the side and that natural edge, the board. So I'm just taking a rat tail file or a round file, and I'm just bringing them down to the edge, and I'll do that all the way around, but they're pretty close. And then I have just a bit of sandpaper. I believe that's 100 or 120, and I'll just soften up all the edges. And I'll do that to all the corners, and then I'll go all the way along with 120 and then 150 hand sand all the top of it. I don't want to take too much of the color off the top of the natural grain. You can see it's got some black and browns and everything, so I'll minimize my sanding. I really want the client, or my friend is not a client, is a friend of mine, to see the natural grain of the board. He's a real outdoors person, so. And I'm just using my horizontal sander here, and I'll just sand flat on the outside, get all those box joints all even up. And this makes quick work of it. This goes pretty fast whenever you're doing something like this. This is a great tool. I use it quite often for You notice on the end of it I got a stop block on it, so I can use that to square things in. So if I'm trying to bring things in just off just a paper here instead of using a saw, I'll just bring it over this and I'll sand it down. You can see how all the box joints just blend in so nicely to the corners. And that grain pattern follows all the way around. So I'll just continue to do that until I've got all the 4 corners done. Then I'll go back and give it a hand sand. Okay, what I'm going to do is put some handles on the end of it. I'll just have some curved handles, and what I've done is I've just ran a channel along both ends. I'm just sizing it here. This is a 1/4 inch, and that's on the end. So I've just done the same thing, but I've ran that right through on the router table, and you can see the channel there. And I want to go with a dark color wood here because I want these handles to stand out. So I'll use a piece of black walnut. I've got some black walnut, so I'll cut a piece and try. And the same thing, I want that grain on both ends. So I've taken a piece and I'll cut it in half, and then I can size that up. And I'll just sand it down until I get it to the size I need. And what I do is I run this through, check it, run it through, check it, and then just till it's a little bit oversized. And then when I hand sand it, it'll be able to go into the dado. There's not a lot of wood there to allow for the wood to purchase in there well, so I have to make sure that it's quite tight. You can see. So that just snaps in there quite nice. And that's no glue or anything, so that's the size I need. Now I'll just cut it to the width and then put a shape on it. So all I do is just take a band of thin wood, clear wood, put it between a couple of screws on a sacrificial table here. And I've made a 1/2 inch mark on both ends, and then I'll just pull that wood out in the center. And just follow along with the pencil on the inside of that. And that'll give them my curve. I only need to do this on one because I'll cut this and then transcribe it to the other side. So there's a dry fit. I just tried it to see if I'm happy with the curve, and I am. And so I'll continue to glue them all in. And what I have there is just a block. You see I used a little 2x2 block, and what I do is just set that up on top and make sure that it's square, and I can set that up, and that's how I can make sure that the handles are parallel to the sides of the serving tray rim that goes all the way along. So you can see the other one there, and I'll be putting that on with, I'll glue it, and then I'll just put it, tack a couple of spots with CA glue. And hold it in, and it'll dry in 30 seconds. And then I'll just put a clamp on it for about an hour to make sure that it's pulled in nice and tight. There it is there. You can see the ends are done. And that black walnut really stands out nice with all these light colors. And I didn't want the handles to blend in, so that's why I went with the walnut. So this tray, because it's going to be used for food and everything, I'm using straight mineral oil, and I'm giving it a good saturation. And this will get 2 saturations. And I'm just flooding it in and using a chip brush or fiber brush, and whatever you want to call them. And you can see this really brings out the grain. And you can see the spalting on the maple on the sides there. The camera doesn't really do it justice, but the grain is really quite beautiful, and you can see the natural edge float in all the way around. And I'll give this 2 deep saturations, and then on the outside rim all the way around on the handles I'll give it a coat of wax, not on the inside though. On the inside we'll just have oil, and then it can be topped up as needed if they need to retreat it again in the years. So So there it is there. We've got it all together. It's a nice, easy project to do. So I'm showing you some pictures here of the completion. So this is after 2 coats. And you can see all that spalting and all the maple coming out. It's just a beautiful piece. That came out really quite nice. Quite happy with it. I hope he'll be happy on it. So I'm doing some smoked salmon and some goodies. And we'll fill that up and bring it over to him for Christmas. So I hope you enjoy these videos, and if you do, please subscribe and stay tuned for more videos coming up. If you have any questions or anything, please send them along. I'm glad to answer them for you. Thank you. The Viking Storm had a good day. Loaded right up to the gunnels. Beautiful day here on Vancouver Island, Canada. Here's our harbor. This is French Creek Harbor. Please enjoy the views, and please subscribe. It really helps the channel, and I really appreciate the people that do subscribe, and we'll continue to bring you great videos in the future. Thanks a lot again. Enjoy the views.